Hello everyone friends, Liuba here with you. In this video, we are going to make a very tasty caramel out of only 3 ingredients. When warm, the caramel is soft and has the texture of a very thick sauce. In the refrigerator, it becomes denser and more stretchy, yet it remains delicate. It is easy to bite into, it is not tough, and it does not stick to your teeth, but instead melts in the mouth. The caramel can be eaten as a standalone dessert or used in recipes for cookies, cheesecakes, cakes, and other desserts. We will definitely make various desserts with it, and now let us get started. So for the ingredients, we will need sugar, cream with a fat content of 33%, butter and salt if desired. For me, salt is an essential ingredient in caramel. I use fleur de sel flakes. So to make the caramel, we will need a saucepan with a heavy bottom. This is important so that the sugar does not burn too quickly and melts evenly. And we will begin by heating the saucepan well. At the same time, we will set the cream to heat until it just reaches the point of boiling. They need to get as hot as possible but not boil. You may start heating them a little later so that they do not cool down too much. When the saucepan is sufficiently heated, we begin to add the sugar in portions. Thanks to the heated bottom of the saucepan, the sugar will start melting right away. You may gently lift the saucepan and help the sugar spread evenly so that the unmelted sugar crystals mix with the sugar that has already melted. It is important to make sure that sugar crystals do not get onto the sides of the saucepan either. Try to ensure that everything happens right at the bottom. When part of the sugar has melted, we add the next portion of sugar, trying to pour it directly into the sugar that has already melted. And likewise, with gentle shaking motions while holding the saucepan in the air, we help the sugar distribute. You may begin stirring the caramel once half of the sugar has melted, and if you lower a spatula into the caramel, then it should remain there until the end of the process. That is, by taking the spatula out, you risk causing sugar to crystallize on it due to the abrupt change in temperature, which can then make further cooking of the caramel more difficult and affect its consistency. The movements with the spatula are quick, short, and confined to the inside of the saucepan. We gradually add the remaining sugar and use the spatula to help the sugar crystals combine with the mass that has already melted. It is also important to keep the walls of the saucepan clean, gently collecting the sugar crystals from the sides into the main mass. By the way, the spatula must be heat resistant. I have a special separate spatula specifically for caramel. And when all the sugar has been added, our task is to bring the caramel to a bright amber color, making sure that every sugar crystal has completely melted. You may periodically lift the saucepan and stir the contents while holding it in the air, or lower the heat to keep the process under control. I periodically adjust the temperature, sometimes lowering it slightly, then raising it again. Here it is important to watch that the caramel does not start to boil or burn. If bits of caramel or unmelted sugar crystals gather on the spatula, it is important to scrape them back into the main mass, because in the end, there must not remain any unmelted particles of sugar. Also make sure that the bottom of the saucepan remains absolutely clean, and that there are likewise no burnt-on bits of sugar or unmelted particles on it. At this stage, it is time to return to the cream. If the cream has cooled down, heat it until it is as hot as possible but not boiling. The cream must be hot enough to prevent the caramel from instantly solidifying because of the temperature difference. When the caramel has become completely uniform, pour a small portion of very hot cream into it. Give the caramel a little time to begin dispersing in the cream, and at this stage you must be very attentive and cautious because the mixture will bubble vigorously, boil, and hot steam will rise. And then we begin to stir actively with the spatula and gradually pour in the remaining cream. We continue stirring vigorously, the mixture will gradually start to settle down, and as soon as active steam ceases to rise and the mixture calms slightly, we immediately remove it from the stove. It is not necessary to cook the caramel, this is important. The mixture should be completely uniform with a very beautiful color, and the bottom of the saucepan must remain clean. And before adding the butter, I let the caramel cool literally just a little in a separate vessel, because when its temperature is above 100 degrees, I do not pour it into a plastic cup. But you should not cool it for long, it needs to stay hot. And when the caramel has cooled a little, just look at its amazing texture. at how glossy, uniform, and very beautiful it is. I pour it into a plastic cup and add room temperature butter, not cold. I mix it in first with a spatula and then bring the mixture together using a blender. And at the very end, I add salt to the finished caramel and stir it with a spatula. With this method, the salt will not fully dissolve in the caramel, and in the finished caramel you will encounter small grains of salt. I like that very much. If you do not wish to encounter salt, you can add it at the stage when you are cooking the caramel, and then the salt will dissolve in it. That is all. At this point, the caramel is ready. I pour it into a plastic container and store it in the refrigerator. I will show you the texture of the caramel that it acquires when chilled. It solidifies and becomes very stretchy, like toffee, and it may seem that it will be chewy, but that is absolutely not the case. It has an amazing creamy, delicate texture. It is hard to convey, you really need to taste it. If you warm the caramel a little in the microwave, it becomes more pliable and is then convenient to work with. The range of applications for such caramel is simply enormous. I really love using the caramel in tartlets in combination with a crisp shortbread crust, with cookies, in cheesecakes, of course, in cake fillings, and many, many other things. I will definitely prepare a dessert recipe with this caramel in the near future. The caramel is very delicious. It is smooth and uniform. It does not crystallize despite the fact that we did not even add glucose syrup during preparation, but to achieve this, it is important to follow the proper cooking technique. Friends, that is all from me. I thank all of you for your attention. See you in new videos. Bye-bye.